Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Podium Esports' coverage of the Setup Shop Charity Challenge presented by Maconi Setup Shop and Majors Garage, benefiting Speedway Children's Charity, as well as Make-A-Wish. Live from iRacing's virtual New Hampshire Motor Speedway in Loudoun, New Hampshire, I'm Justin Prince. Alongside of the booth tonight is James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports, along with our producer, Ryan Bauer. Today is a big night for both of these organizations, James, as they represent their teams and their setup shops, all for a great cause.
Two great causes, in fact. So the Maconi Setup Shop is going to be racing for Speedway Children's Charities, and Majors Garage racing for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So two incredibly wonderful causes that these groups are racing for. And this is a fun one because I think you look at the landscape of iRacing and the development of setup organizations and setup shops. They really are the unsung heroes of this sim. They do so much work in the background, and you don't necessarily see them in the limelight, but they do a lot and they affect a lot in the sim racing community. So it's cool to have them with their own big stage this evening.
Absolutely, and it's in a big track, the Magic Mile as they call it here, New Hampshire Motor Speedway, a track that is hard to drive upon, to say the very least. Let's take a look at the Google Earth specifically for where we're at today in Loudoun, New Hampshire, for this 1 mile circuit. It's the biggest short track in this New England region. James, talk us through this track.
Really flat, more than anything else. That's the defining characteristic of New Hampshire, is that there aren't too many tracks out there in America that are this long and this pancakey, shall we say. So a lot of drivers gonna have to figure out how to use brakes. There are about 3 or 4 different lines you can take on corner exit, and remember, it's small blade, big motor tonight, so these drivers will have to be careful rolling back onto the throttle on corner exit as well. It's very easy to spin yourself out here because of the lack of banking to support your car on corner exit.
Yes, indeed. Let's take a look at the event info directly, where tonight, as mentioned, Maconi Setup Shop will be representing New Hampshire Motor Speedway's chapter specifically of Speedway Children's Charities, while Majors Garage will be representing Make-A-Wish America. That's for the entire United States. How it will work is all the drivers will be scoring points for their respective setup shops they're representing throughout tonight's race, where 50 points will be scored for the race winner overall, 45 points for second place onward. How that then works is all the points would then be tallied up at the end of tonight's race, with the winning charity for the points total receiving 75% of the charity total, $310 at the minimum combined, and then some for tonight's charity totals already for this one. While second place will receive 25% of all the funds raised throughout this event and for this event tonight here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. In other words, there's a lot of pressure for some of the drivers to make sure they represent their teams with pride, as well as continue to raise funds, as you mentioned, for both charitable causes, but also to try and get the race win.
Ultimately, it is about getting the victory at the end of the night. In this case, it's whose setup garage has better speed and who's got the better setup underneath these cars. So there's a sort of red versus blue feel to this, and it should be fun to try and keep track of who's where. We'll try and do our best over the course of the evening to make sure that you know how the drivers for Maconi Setup Shop and Majors Garage are doing.
Yes, indeed. One of the drivers who just wrapped up qualifying and will be representing Maconi Setup Shop tonight is Andrew Player, Lieutenant Andrew Player specifically. He'll also be driving with the New Hampshire State Police Fallen Troopers Memorial on his race car tonight. Andrew, thank you very much for the time. How are you feeling about tonight's race? Andrew Player, do you have a copy, sir?
He's so excited he can't speak.
There we go. Now I got you. Sorry about that. I'm very excited tonight. This is my home track. I don't live too far from here, so I'm really excited about this evening.
How does it feel to be able to take part in events such as this for charity, as well as representing your organization with the colors and branding across that race car tonight?
Well, you know, it's really nice. Being a New Hampshire trooper, it's nice to be able to run a race for a New Hampshire charity here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Personally, I've worked with Speedway Children's Charity a bunch of times up here, so it's really a great time for a good cause, and just really excited about tonight.
Describe some of the preparation for this type of event, as it's Maconi Setup Shop versus Majors Garage. What's that type of feel like and preparation been like for an event such as this?
It's nice knowing we got some really great sponsors here tonight that really take their time and put out some great setups. They put out a great setup tonight for us to run, and it's really nice. Maconi helped sponsor the California Clash earlier this year, so it's really nice knowing that you got a good setup underneath you when you run a race like this.
How does it feel as well to have the support from the Fallen Troopers Memorial for this event?
That it's really nice to be able to represent the 9 troopers on the side of the car tonight. This is a project that's been long overdue, and it's really nice to be able to represent them here at New Hampshire, in New Hampshire. And I really want to bring home a good finish for them. We're making great headway on the memorial. We're still raising funds for that as well, and it's really nice to be able to showcase what a nice memorial they're making for those fallen troopers who made the ultimate sacrifice.
In your opinion, what's it going to take for you and Maconi Setup Shop to come away with the victory tonight?
Really here is being smooth through the turns, not overdriving the car. It's very easy to try and overdrive it, burn the tires up, and just give it too much gas coming off the turns. Really just being smooth and consistent is really the key to this track.
Anything else you'd like to add before we let you go, or anyone you want to thank for your efforts tonight?
Obviously got to thank my wife for letting me run this race. Also want to thank my number one fan, my son, who's upstairs watching as well. So really excited, and thank you to all the people from New Hampshire that are supporting the Fallen Troopers Memorial and helping get that built.
Thank you very much for your time, Andrew. Good luck tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Andrew Player, one of the quickest drivers in practice. He was 5th in that session, 4th total on the qualifying board. Very excited about tonight. Same thing can be said for one of the representatives for the Majors Garage. He's with James Pike. It's one of the crew chiefs for Majors Garage, Joshua Wolf.
Currently 4th on the provisional starting grid is Josh as we roll through qualifying. But Josh, you represent Majors Garage, one of the biggest setup shops in iRacing, and you're going head-to-head with another major setup shop in iRacing, Maconi Setup Shop. So how cool is it from that aspect to be able to compete in an event like this for charity?
I think it's great. Saw it posted by Mike and wanted to jump right in and do this. I think a lot of fun, kind of see where other setup shops are at with their pace and kind of compare ours to it. And with the laps I've turned so far, I think Dallas has put it together a pretty good setup. So we'll see how it does.
Now, Majors Garage efforts tonight are benefiting the Make-A-Wish Foundation. We know all kinds of work that they do across the United States for many sorts of children, sometimes with terminal illnesses, other times with serious illnesses. But in either case, what's the Majors Garage involvement with the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and why Make-A-Wish for tonight?
We kind of had a vote more there. I know I've seen quite a few of the different videos that you can see with Make-A-Wish, and it's definitely a great foundation to be supporting tonight for us. Not really sure, other than just that was the one that got our votes from all the chiefs for tonight. So
should be entertaining to see how the Majors Garage drivers get on. And from the Majors Garage side of this, besides yourself, of course, who else should we be on the lookout for as a driver that may have pace for Majors Garage tonight?
I'm not as familiar on the oval side with what drivers are kind of over there, so I'm not quite sure 100%. About the only name that I see that's familiar is Wayne Hutchison right now. I've raced with him quite a bit, so as far as who else is on the team, I'm not 100% sure. So it'll be kind of interesting getting out there. I'm just going to go out there and have fun and try and do the best I can.
Josh, thanks for the time this evening, and best of luck to you in the New Hampshire Motor Speedway Setup Shop Charity Challenge.
Thank you.
It's Josh Wolf from Majors Garage, who's going to put his name in the hat to see if he can put a good finish in. And JP, just like Majors Garage, there's some representation on the other side as well, and you are with Maconi Setup Shop founder Jeff Maconi.
Yes, indeed, and I know he's definitely pumped up about this race tonight. Jeff, first things first, how are you feeling about this big event this evening?
excited, and honestly, excited is almost an understatement. This is going to be a really, really incredible night. We've already raised a bunch of money, a couple $100 for these charities, and either way, everyone's going to win because the winning shop gets 75%. The quote-unquote losing shop, I don't like to use the term winning and losing in this scenario because everyone's winning, everyone's here for a great cause. But the shop with the most points gets 75%, and the shop with fewer points gets 25%. So either way, everyone wins, and it's just. I've gotten to work with a lot of really great people in putting this together, with Mike and his team over at Majors, with everyone that's signed up, all the streamers and everyone that are here, the staff over at New Hampshire Motor Speedway that we partnered with to put this event on. So many amazing people coming together for this event and working together. It's an amazing feeling to see it all come together like this.
What came into the decision to represent tonight for Maconi Setup Shop Speedway Children's Charities for this evening?
Originally, we were looking at different charities, different groups all around, and when we got in contact with New Hampshire Motor Speedway and proposed this idea to them, to Shannon Stevens, Danielle Sear, and the team over there, they sort of said, hey, we would love, to have our organization represented. And we looked into it and checked everything out, and they are also an amazing group. We were looking at Toys for Tots and other groups like that. And it just all sort of fell together perfectly for Speedway Children's Charities, with the work they do locally in New Hampshire, the New Hampshire Motor Speedway chapter of it, as well as all over the country with all their different chapters at different speedways. It just seemed like the perfect fit to blend racing in with real world help. And, the whole goal of it, no matter which charity it was to help people out during the holidays. It's a week and a day until Christmas, which I know everyone is excited for, that celebrates it. And the whole holiday season is about giving back and doing what we can. And if we can take our passion and love for iRacing and turn that into doing real world good, then man, I can't think of anything better. So it was just a perfect opportunity to work with Speedway Children's Charities, the New Hampshire Motor Speedway chapter, and help them out and help them continue their great work all around New Hampshire.
We heard some of the thoughts from the Majors Garage and one of their drivers tonight, Joshua Wolf, on who he felt to watch. Who do you feel we should watch outside of yourself from Maconi Setup Shop in this race?
Anyone running our logo. Honestly, anyone that's running for us is a really strong contender. There's no one that I'm looking at here and saying, oh, it's that guy. Everyone here is a phenomenal driver on both sides as well. But I know Landon Huffman is a phenomenal driver and knows how to take care of his stuff and is a master of pacing himself and being there at the end. Blake Barney competes in the NASCAR Wheel and Modify Tour. I know he's got a lot of skill there as well. Blake McCandless, who changed sides, pulled a Benedict Arnold about halfway through practice and came over to us. He's going to be very quick. And David Schildhouse showed up. Pretty much everyone here, though, is going to have a chance at it. They play their cards right with strategy and takes care of their stuff, because it's a hot race. So it's going to be survival of the fittest here, I think.
It's going to be an interesting one. Thank you very much for the time, Jeff.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for everything.
Jeff Maconi from Maconi Setup Shop. See how these drivers do tonight. Your Canadian and American national anthems are up next here on Podium Esports. Drivers are now making their way to the starting grid for tonight's action from New Hampshire Motor Speedway for the Setup Shop Charity Challenge. On the pole tonight is Landon Huffman, setting a qualifying time at 29.517 for Maconi Setup Shop. He'll start alongside his fellow real-world driver Blake Barney on the outside, the front row. Blake McCandless starts in row 2, starting alongside the first of the Majors Garage drivers. It's Joshua Wolf is starting 4th. He will start in front of David Schildhouse and Andrew Player, who round out the top 6. Wade Hutchinson starts in 7th tonight in one of the Sargent's Place sponsored cars, with Nick Holland starting in 8th. While the Maconis will start in 9th and 10th. Jeffrey Maconi on the inside, Greg Maconi on the outside, James.
11th on the grid will be Jason Perkins. Brandon Regal starts from P12. 13th on the grid is Michael Lawrence. Matthew Hughes begins tonight's race in 14th. Brian Scribner will roll off in the 15th position. J Cam starts in P16. 17th will be Brogan Pickett Norris, and Adam Morgan completes the 18-car field for tonight's event.
Separation from the top of the board to the bottom of the board, just under 2 seconds here at Loudon, New Hampshire Motor Speedway. The metric mile, as it's known to be, is 0.1058 miles, with banking of 2 to 7 degrees progressive throughout the corners. Front and back stretch, just 1 degree of banking. Been open since 1990 with asphalt surfaces. In-sim time, 12 p.m. Eastern fixed time with 75 laps. The distance tonight, 79.35 miles. That's 127.7 kilometers around this racetrack, with 3 green-white checkered attempts available. Unlimited tires are available this evening with 1 fast repair around the racetrack. Track temperature as well, 127 degrees, almost 78 degrees. Your air temp for this one. Your thoughts, James, as we get ready to go racing?
A few big names in here, a few names that we haven't seen on some podium broadcasts. It should be an entertaining mix of drivers, but Huffman v. McCandless v. Schildhouse, that's your trio of big-time streamer names here. Might be a good subplot amongst this race.
All the drivers all set to go for tonight's action from New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Landon Huffman brings them to the green flag. We're underway from New Hampshire.
Huffman with a really strong drive on the opening start. Same, though, I think you could say, for Blake Barney, who's up top of the number 4 car. Nice moves from Barney to roll the top side, get to the outside of Huffman, and take the race lead on the initial green flag. McCandless up to 3rd as Josh Wolf will cede 4th to David Schildhouse in the 20 car.
Josh Wolf stuck on the top line, and keep in mind, one of the preferred lines is that 2nd to 3rd grooving. You can see with the ticker, by the way, the drivers who will represent Maconi Setup Shop will be driving with the yellow bars next to them, while with the gray bars, it will be the Majors Garage representatives tonight. As you can see, 2 of your top 8 from the Majors Garage, 8 of those drivers from Maconi Setup Shop early on, including Blake Barney in the race lead, already by 3 car lengths into 3.
Really strong showing from the Maconi Setup Shop folks, and plenty of money going to Speedway Children's Charities. And of course, you can use !donate if you're watching on Twitch or YouTube to donate your money to the cause if you're so inclined. But solid work from Maconi Setup Shop people, as it's Barney, Huffman, McCandless, Schildhouse 1, 2, 3, 4 at the front of this, just like I thought we might see.
Yes, indeed. And definitely a ton of work put in for a lot of these teams for this type of race, and a ton of work by these respective drivers up front here. They're all competitive in their own regards here. Of course, McCandless running a ton on the sim, Huffman a ton on the sim, Barney a ton on the sim, as talked about, as well as real world, and Schildhouse a ton on the sim, as we follow along with McCandless trying to find his way around for 2nd. Just can't get the run quite yet underneath.
I'll be curious to see when that top groove comes in. We talk about it at most tracks we go to. Eventually, you might see 2 lanes, but this is a relatively short field. Only 18 cars, so these drivers may lay a little bit more rubber down by searching around than just forcing people side by side. I don't expect the groove, or at least the preferred groove, to be all that wide this evening, but doesn't mean that we won't have some people searching, as Blake McCandless searches underneath Landon Huffman for P2.
Side by side now for the 2nd position. McCandless on the inside. Huffman forced down, and one of the main things is you can squeeze, and a big squeeze from Huffman that time. McCandless still clear in the 2nd groove. And keep in mind, Huffman, a new addition to the Maconi Setup Shop group, where it started as a partnership and sponsorship that has now grown to him being part of the organization. He's already been passed by 2 of his teammates because of that move in turn 3.
McCandless already clear, Shieldhouse already clear, Huffman out of the groove. That's the biggest issue for the 75 car. He just could not get down to that. Looks like maybe second lane up from the racetrack is the one you want to be in the middle of these corners, about where the old inside line was. Remember, before 2000 was the apron at New Hampshire, and they reconfigured the track slightly after the 2000 season to widen the corner entry and make it a little bit shorter. So you've got more grooves to work with there, but people don't necessarily use them all the time.
Yes, indeed. It's all about driver preference in some cases, right? Where several battles are starting to form up amongst those groups. We've seen a little while ago the Maconis fighting back and forth 9th and 10th, also fighting in P5 and 6 right now, for reference sake, are some of the Majors Garage drivers. And keep in mind, the Majors Garage is not just a setup shop. They also run the Major Series. 2 of the drivers fighting here run in that series. Wayne Hutchinson for the American region for Dog Bear. Then you have one of the Torque Freak Racing representatives in Joshua Wolf in front of him at the moment. So those drivers growing a relationship with Majors there, eventually crossing over to the Majors Garage itself proper.
The Major Series, I feel like, is one of the rare series on iRacing that really does test you across the board. It's no coincidence that their champion is awarded the Mario Andretti Trophy every year. And that series really tests your excellence across the board. I've seen the old Lotus Grand Prix cars at Watkins Glen as part of their setup, traditionally shorter versions of the endurance races at Le Mans, Daytona, some of the big tests of NASCAR, the Coca-Cola 600, the Daytona 500, amongst their regularly occurring events each and every year, and a very intriguing series that just span the world. And you would expect, I think, for next season, we'll see the IRL1 in the mix somewhere in that series. Where they end up taking it is going to be a very fun thing to watch out for, because that race should be very entertaining to watch.
I think so as well. Some entertaining battling going on between Nick Holland, Andrew Player, and now the Maconis here. And for Player, he's lost 2 positions from the drop of the green flag. The biggest mover so far is Shieldhouse +2. Most positions lost is Huffman.
Player running that very special paint scheme as you ride on board with David Shieldhouse, who is just stalking Blake McCandless in the 66 machine. Not necessarily pressing the issue just yet, but Shieldhouse, maybe not a surprise that we're seeing that car come to life as this run continues to progress. He just released a video on YouTube last week about how to save tires. This is a track where if you can save tires correctly, you will really start gaining on your competition, and one that I would think would play to Shieldhouse's strengths.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of those tips really work, and these drivers have the ability to tune things around. Shieldhouse with a better run here to the inside makes the move out of turn 2, and just like that makes it look easy. He was quicker than McCandless by a few 100ths last time by. But was going to say, if you look towards the wheel movements, one of those main tips, 16-1, there's a reason that drivers go towards that now. Is it means, yes, you have to put in more wheel movement, but it's more smoother wheel movement compared to the little minimal movements that can jitter your car around, and that seems to be working for some of the Maconi setup shop cars.
Potentially. Blake Barney continues to lead this race. 12 laps complete of the 75 that will run this evening, and that Shieldhouse beginning to reel him in. Last time, 6/100ths of a second faster, and full 4/10ths faster than Blake McCandless on the last lap. This time around, Shieldhouse faster than Barney by a 10th. So the 20 cars charging to the front with relative ease already.
Yes, indeed. 30.7 last time, a 10th quicker than the race leader, and Barney separated by just about half a second at the moment. Huffman, for comparison's sake, has fallen off an extra 2/10ths or so compared to your race leaders, has already dropped more than 2 seconds behind your leader, all the way back to some of the Majors Garage drivers. So the fall off is hitting Huffman big, it seems, James.
Big time hit, but then again, Blake McCandless was even slower than Huffman by a 10th that last time by. So this is more about the ability to save tires, and again, Shieldhouse faster than a 10th. So long run speed, hands down, no question, to the 20. The bigger question, I think, now is when does he catch the 4, and how long does it take for him to get around the 4?
That's the 20 on the race car, specifically 17 on your timing screens for this action. 60 laps to go already in this race. Shieldhouse another 10th and a half quicker. Looks like he has a good piece on him, and this shouldn't be a surprise. Shieldhouse, a very talented driver in his own right. That time hit a little bit of the apron difference with that progressive banking. That cut kicked him a bit loose and lost him a 10th, as Huffman now tries to hold off Wolf and Hutchinson.
Shieldhouse may be one of the closest things to a jack of all trades in the iRacing community, except he also happens to be a master of a lot of them. He can drive. He's been around sim racing for over 2 decades. He can announce. He was the first number 2 Podium Esports ever had in the booth, and lent many a call to lots of our broadcasts in the early days with the Elite Series and the Truck Series. And oh, by the way, he's now picked up this whole streaming YouTube thing pretty well in 2020. It's been explosive growth for the Shieldhouse D brand, all the way down to, I figure there has to be an Alden's ice cream deal coming at some point. That's social media used for good, and David's definitely made it very clear how fond he is of their ice cream sandwiches.
There's a reason Burton Cookerman Esports picked him up for a good notice, as well as North Force Racing, who's grown their social media presence since him joining the past few weeks. A lot deeper on the brakes, though, Shieldhouse right now. And that's intriguing so far, James, because he's sending it all the way nearly up to the safer barrier. He's setting it so hard on the brakes.
You can make those front runners cherry red, and it might gain you a little bit of speed short term, but traditionally long term, that doesn't work out all that well. However, these drivers are moving higher and higher up the racetrack as their tires wear, so we're starting to see the rubber spread out across 3 or 4 different blades. Meanwhile, a little bit further back, battle for 4, 5, 6 spots with Landon Huffman, Josh Wolf, and Wayne Hutchison.
It's been a bit back and forth among those drivers. Wolf has stayed within lockstep of Hutchinson. For the time being, they've separated 3 seconds to the next pack. Just can't quite yet build up the run. Time is starting to build back up towards the direction of Huffman. That time he gained 3/10 on Joshua Wolf in that fight.
Big time moves from Josh Wolf, who's beginning to try and hang on to that fifth spot, but Hutchinson with the speed as well. And this, again, it's the overarching theme of this green flag run. Who's got the long run speed and who can save tires? They come across the stripe this time by. Barney was faster than Shieldhouse the lap before, but Shieldhouse picked up a 10th on Barney that last time by. So they continue to move, and Shieldhouse has changed his line as well. He's really starting to set it on the inside, and he was almost at the quarter panel in the forecourt for the race lead.
Drifted a little bit coming out of the corner as well as we take a look at that battle for the lead right now. Barney still holding on to the second and third line on top of the seam. Shieldhouse drifting it up to the seam. 54 to go this time by. Shieldhouse stronger in 1 and 2. Barney a bit quicker in 3 and 4 at the moment. Within 2 to 3/10 of a second, another faster lap on the track for Shieldhouse.
Shieldhouse beginning to really start the Jaws music up. He is inching ever so closer to the forward machine of Blake Barney, who has led since the drop of the green flag. He got around Landon Huffman in turn 2 in the opening lap and has not been challenged since, but Shieldhouse is the best challenge in this field yet to the number 4's claim to the race lead.
So what's it going to take for Shieldhouse, you feel, to make the pass? Because he's quick. He's been trying to send it to the inside, but as we've seen, the longer the run goes, the harder it gets to pass at New Hampshire.
Timing and patience, that's the biggest thing. Timing and patience, especially in a race like this where the field is so spread out and we look unlikely to get a yellow flag. This is a move that Shieldhouse, I think, can make over the course of 10 to 15 laps. He's got the time to set this up. So I don't think you really pressure Barney all that much if you're the 20 car. I think you just let him run his race and potentially run his tires into the ground. That's been the story over the last 10 to 15 laps. Shieldhouse has consistently been at least a 10th quicker. So you figure at some point here, Barney's tires will give way and Shieldhouse will go to the front. The only thing that might trip Shieldhouse up is if he gets loose off of turn 2, which I've seen him do a few times over that 10-lap stretch. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to piece together how Shieldhouse tries to make his assault on the race lead.
He's just seen that previously with Joshua Wolf in turn 2. They're stuck side by side trying to fight with Landon Huffman. Wayne Hutchinson also in the group. The leaders separating out a little bit, a 10th that time by. So a couple big battles starting to form up. Here's that battle for the lead again. Schildhouse to the inside. Big drift and a big save once again. And for Schildhouse.
Every time he tries to get under the 4-car out of turn 2, he gets loose, and all of a sudden, look who's climbed back into this battle. Blake McCandless has reeled in the 2 leaders as they've been fighting one another. So what was a 2-car battle could be a 3-car battle. Meanwhile, Josh Wolf to the inside of Landon Hupton to try and get 4th away.
Yes, that's been going on for the past couple laps, as noted, as Josh Wolf that time scored in 4th. Can he get clear with the slide? Yes, the road course driver able to get clear. That's his specialty. For Hutchinson, he's the next car behind Huffman as he now gathers it back up on the high side. Good pass and a good battle, and that just shows how much time it can take to make a move.
It really can take a long time to get a pass done here at New Hampshire because of the lack of banking. You really have to nail corner entry and exit to get alongside someone here, more so than at most other places we see on the other side of iRacing. So this is really a track where you do have to set it up in that textbook sense. It is not something where you luck into passes all that often.
Absolutely. And that's why, for some, it can take 5, 10, 15 laps to set up a move. The pass battle has been going on up at the front for about 10 laps. Barney, that time, cut off the nose of Schildhouse, holding up the run off the corner. Schildhouse forced to reset once again, and eventually, something's going to have to boil over here with how Schildhouse is now starting to diamond and exit these corners.
Will that change? Will McCandless's line change? I'd be curious to see what's going on out of the front windshield of the 66 and at least find some way to get into McCandless's head, figure out what he's thinking here. Because I wonder if he might be sitting and watching the 20 and the 4 and learning their lines and trying to figure out what may work or what might not work for his car.
And save tires on top of that, too, by not having to dive it in, as Wayne Hutchinson tries to dive it in a lane. And Huffman again, not able to make it stick on the run out of turn 2.
Not out of 2, but maybe here in 4. We'll see how deep Huffman and Hutchinson try and drive it in. Answers about equal, so they will be maybe wheel to wheel. Huffman got a little bit sideways, but that was actually a relatively nice exit out of 4 for the 75. Used the throttle to rotate the rear end of the car very nicely, and no surprise, Landon, the son, of course, of Robert Huffman, former champion of what was then the Goodies Dash Series, and the first ever series that Toyota competed in NASCAR. Before they brought the Camry to the Cup Series in 07, before they brought the Tundra to the Truck Series in 04, it was, I believe, the Toyota Celica that they ran in the Dash Series, and it was in a White House Apple Juice Celica that Robert Huffman made his name and his mark on the stock car racing world.
Big time pedigree, and we've seen him throw back in some of his drivers, throw back to that in the past. Remember him being so proud of that victory from Brandon Jones in the throwback car at Darlington earlier this year. As the race leaders, here's one of the tricky parts coming up here is they've reached lap traffic for the first time. Brendan Regal is the first car up, then they'll reach Adam Morgan, Matthew Hughes, and a few others, so lap traffic could be thick here.
They've reached lap traffic, and it almost looks like Blake Barney has reached the end of his tire line, because I saw that 4-car wiggle all over the place on the exit of 4 that last time by. So the tires are clearly going away on Barney's machine. The question is, how are the tires doing on David Schildhouse's car? How are the tires doing on Blake McCandless's car? Can either of those two set something up? And does McCandless maybe have the fastest machine as they come across the stripe? He was faster last lap by a 10th over Schildhouse and 0.2 over Barney, so they're stringing back together amongst the top 3.
And if anything, the track temp has gone higher as the race has gone on, and that shouldn't be a surprise with 1, the laps being turned, but 2, some of the changes with the new iRacing build last week, which included increasing the amount of temperature built up by the cars as they make their way around the racetrack. This was one of those tracks where one of the braking zones could come in contact with the wall. Blake Barney hits the fence. Here comes Schoenhouse for the race lead. Big mistake from the number 4. The North American construction car forced up top with damage. Schoenhouse with no damage to the inside. McCandless now looks to follow suit as Schoenhouse spins it to the inside. He locks it up into the grass. McCandless up to second.
I thought we were going to be talking about one mistake, and then David Schildhouse makes an even bigger mistake, and now there's a tremendous amount of damage to the left front of the number 20 Splash and Go Graphics Toyota Camry. The Clearman Sports driver now, we can officially call it after the name change announced earlier today, with a tremendous amount of work to do, and what was one of the best cars in this field in the opening 20 laps now is buried back in 7th as Blake McCandless nearly makes the same mistake, but Barney fences himself again on the backstretch, and Blake McCandless is now your race leader as the yellow flag comes out.
And it's Jason Perkins who brings out the yellow. He's already put his car into the pit lane. And what a time for things to boil over just prior to halfway. This is the reason for the caution flag, as we'll take a look at it. It's the number 49 representing Maconi setup shop. And it seems that backstretch on towards turn 3 has become a treacherous portion of the racetrack. We'll see.
It's not even the backstretch, it's just these drivers missing the mark on the return to throttle on corner exit. That's the hardest thing. You get on it too much, and especially because these rear spoilers are so small and there are no restrictions on the power of these engines, these cars are very easy to send into a tailspin, and that's exactly what Jason Perkins did to bring out the yellow flag. Wasn't necessarily a huge mistake. He just got on the throttle a little bit too early and sent himself into the fence. It was the exact same thing that David Schildhouse did over in turn 2 a few laps ago, and a similar thing to what Blake Barney has done, but won't matter now because they're all coming down pit road. I think the bigger question, especially for Schildhouse and Barney, is how much time do they spend repairing their cars?
Don't forget there is one fast repair tonight, so that's the saving grace when it comes to Schildhouse. The downside, he's in 7th. As a result of his incident in the time of the caution flag. Again, pardon, that was on the front stretch. Cars now coming into pit, as we'll see how they fare out for this one. Like Barney, among the drivers using him, ran a bit too far back into his pit box. Going to lose additional time here, James.
So Barney already was going to try and fix the damage a little bit. Now he's going to get his car set up and will lose some track position, fall to about 3rd, 4th, somewhere in there. 3rd, I think, officially, behind Blake McCandless and Josh Wolf, who had a great pit stop and beats everybody out to get the track position and jumps up immediately to P2.
So an interesting middle portion of this race already, as we'll take a side-by-side. You're watching the Setup Shop Charity Challenge live from the virtual New Hampshire Speedway on Podium Esports.
Carl Edwards comes off turn number 4 to win the Coca-Cola 600.
Hi, I'm Carl Edwards, and I'm doing backflips over Speedway Children's Charities. Since 1982, we've been taking care of kids in need. Everything from a healthy meal or winter coat to defeating childhood cancer. Also, your kids can lead productive lives. With your help, we're able to care for the future generations of our great nation. Please learn more and get involved by visiting us at www.speedwaycharities.org.
Speedway Children's Charities is a non-profit organization that provides funding that causes that meet direct needs of children nationwide. Represented by Maconi Setup Shop as they endure to ensure every child has the same opportunities no matter what obstacle they're facing. Challenges ranging from learning disabilities, broken homes, and childhood cancer on the agenda for the local chapters of SCC and numerous non-profit organizations they support. In 2020 alone, Speedway Children's Charities distributed more than $1 million in grants to 1,700 charitable organizations across the country, bringing their total funds distributed since 1982 to more than $59.4 million. For more information, visit speedwaycharities.org. Justin Prince, James Pike with you, Ryan Bauer in the director's seat here on Podium Esports for coverage of the Setup Shop Charity Challenge here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. And what has been a dramatic past 10 laps. For those just tuning in, several drivers got loose in the battle for the race lead, including Blake Barney, who hit the wall twice down the straightaway, David Schildhouse, who spun it into the inside wall down the back stretch for the race lead before the caution came out for a spin down the front stretch.
And if you are David Schildhouse or Blake Barney, but Schildhouse in particular, with all that damage he had on the left front, how thankful are you that you had a fast repair to work with?
Absolutely. Same could be said for Blake Barney, who was starting to suffer from hitting the wall twice with the right front. He lost positions, though, after having a miscue on his entrance to the pit box. That means it's McCandless, Wolf, Barney, Huffman, Hutchinson, Holland, your top 6. Green flags out, backing away from New Hampshire.
That was a beautiful restart for Blake McCandless, who jumps out by maybe, 2-3 car lengths over the rest of the field, as Barney will immediately go to the bottom. But we saw that top line work on the initial start, and I wonder if it might be the case for Wolf as well, who's going to ride right up to the fence and stay door-to-door with the number 4 car down the backstretch.
Caution is out of the back of the field to spin, and it's Regal, Brandon Regal, who brings us under caution. It's in 17th position, 1 lap down. He was among the drivers who were lapped during the first long green flag run of this race. Let's take a look.
Same sort of issue, although it looked like he may have checked up. It looked like somebody else got loose in front of him. Couldn't tell who, but in either case, little short puff of smoke that I saw just in front of Regal's machine. And whether or not he checked up or got on the gas, we're not sure. But in either case, again, just spun himself out. So he'll come down pit road to fix those tires and get rid of the flat spotted Goodyear Eagles that are underneath his 36.
Yep, you've seen it right there, and it just seems that if you're running in that second groove, you're going to potentially snap loose. It's been a trouble spot past here on iRacing, as they'll stick to double file restarts, as take you side by side once again for coverage of the Setup Shop Charity Challenge. And
to a child battling critical illness, a wish can feel like a dream. But it's so much more. Wishes are an important part of medical treatment. A chance for kids to see themselves differently. Wishes can give kids the strength to fight, to get better, to grow up. Where there's a wish, there's a way.
coverage of the New Hampshire Motor Speedway Setup Shop Charity Challenge is brought to you by Make-A-Wish America, the representatives for Major's Garage. Make-A-Wish creates life-changing wishes for children with critical illnesses. Their fight inspires Make-A-Wish to grant life-changing wishes for children going through so much and compels them to be creative and exceeding the expectations of every Wish kid. Wishes impact everyone involved: Wish kids, volunteers, donors, sponsors, medical professionals, and communities. For Wish kids, just the act of making their wish come true can give them the courage to comply with their medical treatments. Parents might finally feel they can be optimistic, and there are still others who might realize all they have to offer through the world, through volunteer work or philanthropy. For more information, visit once more Make-A-Wish online at wish.org.
Two great causes between Speedway Children's Charities and Make-A-Wish that are benefiting from tonight's race, and Blake McCandless going to get the chance to benefit from the front spot on the grid. He really did have a barn burner of a restart that last time around. The question is whether or not he can repeat it on this restart, which should come, I presume, probably in the ballpark of lap 45. So already closing in to 30 laps to go.
Yeah, it's been going by quickly so far, and so far it seems these restarts have been really helping, or the driver especially, who is in control of the field for one, but it seems the outside line seems to be the preferred line early on, with that trouble spot being the inside of the corners with the tire spin.
Outside corners and old tires again. I think the good news for a lot of these drivers is that outside of a green, white checker finish, we're not going to see another run as long as that opening run, and we may see a few more yellows sprinkled throughout the back half of this race as well. Just keep our eye on how things will shake out, as the lights are indeed off the pace car, and Blake McCandless will lead them to green on lap 45 of 75.
He pulled away by at least 6 car lengths off that last restart. Josh Wolf was able to take away second after the restart. Blake Barney was already kept to third. Huffman, Hutchinson, Hull in the top 6. Schildhouse, Jeff Maconi, along with Andrew Player and Jake Ham, a quiet +6 is your biggest mover, rounding up the top 10. Drivers have insisted on going single file, it appears, for this restart here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. 31 laps to go. McCandless up on the top wall brings us back to the green.
Another good restart for McCandless, and another 2 to 3 car length lead he'll take into turn 1 as Barney's going to send it on in. Try to get underneath the 12 of Josh Wolf. Couldn't quite get to the rear quarter panel of the 12 machine. Huffman just hanging out there. Meanwhile, David Schildhouse already underneath Nick Holland to go to 6th.
And that's what can happen sometimes with the single file restarts. If you get a better launch in the car in front, it can set up a move. Speaking of setting up a move, Barney wants his second spot back. Joshua Wolf in the Dark Brick Racing car with a better run off the corner, though, as Landon Huffman now watches along.
Landon Huffman looking to follow Barney and see if he can get around the 12 machine like that red North American Construction Chevy Camaro to try and take over the third position it would be if they could both clear Josh Wolf. Problem is that Barney has not shaken the 12 off just yet, and all the while that's allowed McCandless to get away. He's now ahead by almost a full second.
The rare world driver who races the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour debuted in 2018 for his family team. He now drives his car up to second as Wolf keeps it to the outside. What a send up in the outer groove. Not enough to make it stink, though. Barney up to second. Huffman tries to take a peek, all while Schildhaus is battling for fifth.
Blake Barney literally drove it up to second and nearly drove Josh Wolf up into the fence. And Huffman tried to do the same sort of move, maybe not quite as aggressively, but the same sort of thing where you drive it in deep and just stick it right underneath the car ahead of you and make sure that you don't leave any breathing room in between. But McCandless and Barney now a clear 1-2 as Schildhaus will dispatch Wayne Hutchinson to take over fifth.
And just able to make the Weeble Wobble on by off the corner. 27 to go this time. So Schildhaus having a long way to climb, though, by 2.4 seconds. Especially since McCandless pulled away by a second plus over Blake Barney after that short run in that short battle for second position.
Here's the thing. If we have cars weeveling and wobbling, at some point, are they going to fall down, JP?
Possibly. Well, we've already seen Schildhaus Weeble Wobble into the Armco once tonight, and a couple drivers Weeble Wobble into the outside fence. That's not necessarily a good thing. How tough is it to make sure you don't Weeble Wobble your way around this track into a wall?
Figure Schildhaus will get on the radio and make sure that they put away the gigantic ice cream sandwiches signs that I suspect were lining the inside of the back straightaway. We know how distracting those can be for the 20 car. But not distracted driving at the moment for Schildhaus. He looks very comfortable and composed, and it's the same sort of charge on this green flag run that he made at the beginning of the race, working over Landon Huffman to try and get fourth.
He really wants his time back. He's gained half a second the past couple laps, and he's the fastest car on the track by a 1/10.5 to 2 seconds, 2/10 of a second over your race leader. So Schildhaus, he definitely seems motivated and committed, to say the very least, to get those spots back in quickly, since there's not a lot of time, only 24 laps this time, and that can be tough to close up in total on 4 cars in front to make moves on.
It's a really tough one for Schildhaus, because had he not put himself in the fence out of turn 2 towards the end of that first green flag run, he would have had the track position to be right there with McCandless, right there with Blake Barney, and he wouldn't have to be fighting through the field the way he is. Now, there's still time to get this done. He's only 2 seconds behind the race leaders, but now you don't have the time to sit and wait and make the move. He may have to force the issue in a few spots just to get the track position to get anywhere near Barney or the 66.
Absolutely. All those cars currently in the midst of a 6-car train. Wayne Hutchinson, the last caboose on that. But Blake McCandless, he's starting to fall off by about a 1/10 a lap. It's similar to what we've seen the last run, where he seemed to save a ton by letting the car roll an extra bit more, James. And he's doing the same here. That's where this lead's starting to come down on Barney.
How interesting is it that we're seeing pretty much everybody in the top 5, anybody who's running in second, has been learning from the race leader in some way, shape, or form, as Barney just outright drove it into the corner. He'll burn off the tires if he continues to do that for 5 laps, but he also gained about 2 or 3 car lengths in one turn, braking the way he is.
And keep in mind, Maconi Setup Shop, we've mentioned the big streamers and the big names there. That has been kind of where a lot of the big names have come to Maconi Setup Shop in 2020. McCandless, a part of this grouping tonight. We've mentioned Blake Barney representing the team outright. There's other drivers such as Anthony Alfredo, Trevor Edwards, Evan C., who are among either their drivers or setup builders. A lot of talent has entered and stayed in the doors of Maconi Setup Shop this year.
Lots of talent from Maconi Setup Shop as McCandless continues to lead Blake Barney, but the lead's now down to maybe a car length at best as Shieldhouse continues to try and work over Landon Huffman. He's not cleared the 75 just yet, and Josh Wolf, although those first two are racing each other, he's not been able to close the gap on the 4 of the 66. He's just been maintaining at about 4 or 5 car lengths back as Shieldhouse now works to the inside of Landon Huffman.
And big bobble for Huffman as Shieldhouse has the preferred line for the entrance of turn 1. David Shieldhouse up to 4th. That battle lost him 2/10, but again, he's been the quickest car on the track whenever he has been running on his own. So that could be critical with how he's been able to save and drive on this track. 19 to go this time. It's currently a 1, 2, 4, and 5 for Maconi Setup Shop. Highest running driver from the Majors Garage is Josh Wolf, who is still in 3rd.
Still in 3rd. We'll watch lap times this time by, see who was fastest. And McCandless and Shieldhouse were 1st and 2nd in that order, followed by Wolf and then Barney. So the 4 car was the slowest of the top 4, but everybody within a 10th, which I think is everything McCandless will want to see. If it's only a 10th that separates these drivers, they'll be in pretty good shape to maintain their spots as is. Shieldhouse, of course, will hopefully have something to say about that before the end of this.
We'll have to see. It's going to be entertaining, I think, how this all plays out amongst these drivers. You have a driver who started all 16 races in the Whelen Modified Tour last year in Blake Barney, young 20-year-old with 2 top 10s. You have McCandless, a sim racing veteran, up at the front, who just gained half a second now on your race lead. You have Joshua Wolf, known for his road course racing abilities, in 3rd. And of course, you have very well-respected David Shieldhouse rounding up the top 4. Some big names and some very well-respected drivers. A lot of respect all around, of course, throughout this race tonight.
Plenty of respect indeed. This is a driver's track in the sense that those who know how to use the throttle here will pull away from those who don't very quickly. And we've seen that in due stead as the top 4 have separated themselves. And some of these cars are nearly a full 3/4 of a lap behind our race leaders. So a significant gap between our front runners and some of the lap down cars. And it underscores just how talented the race leaders are in this field.
And of course, the many drivers racing for big causes on top of things tonight. As McCandless going to the middle lines, Barney up the top line. You have Andrew Player. We talked with him earlier on tonight. He's been having a quiet run in ninth, battling with Jeff Maconi still. Nick Holland also up the road, who is one of the quickest drivers in practice.
McCandless still leading. Barney now maybe sliding back a little bit towards Wolf. We saw the bobble, the telltale weave from the 4 car, indicating that his tires are starting to go, and he pressed it so hard on McCandless some 5 laps ago. I wonder if those heavy corner entries with the tremendous amount of front brake are beginning to cost the Ford machine now, because the rear end is stepping out all over the place every time he enters a corner. And Josh Wolf is actually starting to gain on the Ford machine, as is Shieldhouse and Ford.
And this is all while it's a second back now. It was within 2/10 as Barney again loose. And that's the same type of weeble wobble we just seen from Barney that started the trigger for the battle for the race lead, the first long run of the race. Loose again off turn 2 as they make their way off the corner. Wolf a little bit more on the tighter side off that line, higher by half a car length.
The definition of hanging on, I think, is where Blake Barney currently sits. Although, interestingly enough, Wolf and Shieldhouse aren't that much faster than the 4 car, with as out of shape the rear end looks on that machine. Last time by, Shieldhouse was 2/10 faster than Wolf and Barney, but it's all pretty stable, and Shieldhouse is only 5/100ths faster than Blake McCandless. So the 66 just sort of maintaining at this point, and he'll love to see the battle that will develop behind Tim, because if they start racing heavily for second, it might be over then and there. If it isn't already, this may be McCandless's if we go green the rest of the way.
Put this in perspective. 3/10 was just lost by Barney. That corner exit, trying to diamond it off the corner and build up a run. Joshua Wolf all over the back bumper, and Shieldhouse, he's coming to say hello. Fastest car on the track is McCandless, though, by a couple 100ths at the moment. So a difficult top 4 battle. Keep in mind, 5th is also heating up because Huffman's having to hold off. Wayne Hutchinson, they've been back and forth a bit. Andrew Poyer also made the pass for 8th after Jeffrey Maconi tried to defend by smashing his car into the right side. Safer barrier in turn 1.
So Maconi carrying the damage that is going to keep him towards the back half of the top 10 for the rest
trouble.
of this
Jeffrey
race.
Maconi inside wall. He's smacking the fence. At the start and finish line, caution is out.
Oh, if you ever wanted a good little strategy play here, Maconi just burnt the tires off his machine more than anything else. We saw the damage that affected the 24 just before that incident happened, and all of a sudden, Maconi wrecks on the front straightaway after fencing it over in 1 and 2, and now we really will have a short race task to the finish, and this is, I think, exactly what David Shieldhouse wanted to see. Gives him the chance to be right on the rear bumper of Blake Barney coming to the restart, and the outside lane is where you wanted to be when we go green flag racing. Depending on whether or not this goes single or double file, this could be a very good setup for Barney and for Shieldhouse as well.
And for obvious reasons, he's given himself the ended longest line penalty. And this is huge for Shieldhouse especially because this closes up all the time, and we've seen how good he's been throughout this race. We'll have to see how these drivers fare out, as it's been a quick one. 9 laps to go. Pit stops underway. We'll go through your pit stop running order after this. You're watching the Setup Shop Charity Challenge from New Hampshire Motor Speedway.
At Maconi Setup Shop, we offer custom-built setups for any asphalt oval car. Prices starting at just $5. Weekly setups available for all Legends, late models, modifieds, and NASCAR trucks, Xfinity, and Cup cars. Do you need one-on-one driver coaching? We've got you covered. Visit www.maconisetupshop.com and find yourself in Victory Lane. Maconi Setup Shop, handling all your setup needs so you don't have to.
Welcome back to New Hampshire Motor Speedway for more coverage of the Setup Shop Charity Challenge, where Maconi Setup Shop's drivers are up towards the front. Maconi Setup Shop is one of the first setup shops who existed in all of iRacing's platform and remain a leading name in quality, affordability, and professionalism. Their group includes some of the best known and most talented setup builders on iRacing, including Bill Groves, Evan C., Dustin Monboycat, Ryan Matthews, Trevor Edwards, Tower Shadunk, along with Overton Speed Shop, the builders of their setup tonight. They work hard to provide setups and top-level one-on-one coaching to their customers each week. Contact Maconi Setup Shop by going to MaconiSetupShop.com. Closing stages of this one, James, and what a race it has been.
Been a big-time race. We'll see what sort of strategy we get on what could be the last restart. Lights are still in the pace car, but again, a reminder that all these drivers' efforts tonight are going to 2 different charities. The Maconi Setup Shop drivers putting forth donations towards Speedway Children's Charities, and Major's Garage donating to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And also worth noting that today, Charlotte Motor Speedway announced that the Charlotte chapter of Speedway Children's Charities distributed $300,000 to local nonprofits in Mecklenburg County and the Metro Atlanta area. A big, big day for Speedway Children's Charities there. And we know, of course, the local chapter in New Hampshire, which is the group that New Hampshire Motor Speedway works so much with, has done a lot for a lot of children in the New England area.
Absolutely huge. And to donate to the New Hampshire chapter to add to the totals overall throughout the entire country, go to speedwaycharities.org/New Hampshire. And also on YouTube and Twitch, comment the exclamation mark donate to bring up the ability to donate to both Make-A-Wish and Speedway Children's Charities. Let's recap how the top 10 now shapes up, because a lot of strategy came into play during that side-by-side. Nick Holland involuntarily missed his pit box. He's now your control car. Landon Huffman took 2 tires. He is in second. 4 tires were taken by McCandless, Barney, and Wolf, along with Shieldhouse and Hutchinson. Player took 2. Matthew Hughes, a quiet race, took 2. Ham took 4. Among your top 10 cars, Greg Maconi rounds up the top 11. Holland brings us to the green flag. 6 laps to decide it from New Hampshire.
Blake McCandless wasted no time getting to the inside of the 69 machine. So where does he go? He's trapped in the middle. Here comes Schildhouse to the inside, as looks like Landon Huffman trying to get to the outside, and maybe, just maybe, is going to keep the 20 at bay. But Schildhouse with a big opportunity is a wreck on the back straightaway. Cars everywhere. And the yellow flag out before we get back to the start finish line. But they all came together coming out of turn 2.
Especially at the back as the caution flag is out. Michael Lorch got the biggest hit of them all after Matthew Hughes snapped hard right in the Merry Christmas machine. And Merry Christmas indeed. That car said Merry Christmas in a big smashing way.
That was a smashing way to say Merry Christmas indeed. Again, it's the same problem we've seen all night. I hate to feel like a broken record, but it really is just drivers getting on the throttle too much too early, which at this point of the race is to be expected. Everybody trying to get every last position that they can. We're down to the final 5 laps of the race, depending on whether or not we get one of those organic green-white checkers that Mr. Schildhouse himself coined, and he's going to get the opportunity to potentially race for the race win along with Landon Huffman, who took 2 tires to McCandless and Schildhouse's 4, and Blake Barney on 4 tires in the mix too. So where's your brain going so far as strategy is concerned if you're any one of these top 4, Johnson?
Right now I'm thinking McCandless and Huffman are going to have an interesting start, but Schildhouse is in a great spot here possibly. I'm curious to see how they do it, and if Huffman can battle his way on the 2 tires. Curious on your thoughts, and I'm curious of the thoughts of the drivers over at Majors Garage, the team taking on Maconi Setup Shop tonight. At Majors Garage, you can find current setups for 53 vehicles on the iRacing service free of charge. Their 22 crew chiefs are pro-level experts in the cars they build setups for. Drivers who enjoy Majors Garage setups can also find qualifying setups and find the best setups at iRacing. Subscribe to Majors Garage today. For more info, visit majorsgarage.com. Tonight, they are representing Make-A-Wish America, and their setup was built this evening by one of the top oval drivers in all of the Major Series European region this year, that being specifically James Dallas Pataska. For more info on Make-A-Wish, by the way, go to wish.org. Looking like we're going to green-white checker territory either way, James.
Potentially, as we will get the green flag no earlier than lap number 75, it looks like. So it will not be an organic green-white checker. Instead, it will be our first attempt at a green-white checker finish. So no more than 2 laps for these drivers to race it out, which means we could see some very wild moves at the end of this.
In your opinion, how do you try and play this, especially if you're Schildhouse, depending on how this restart goes, and really it coming down to 2 laps to decide things, especially knowing, yes, you're racing money for charity, but you're racing for the victory on top of things as a driver?
It's a tough one. The easy play for Schildhouse would be to just send it off deep in a 1 and 2 and door the 66, but I don't necessarily think that that's the way you want to win one of these races. So you just have to sort of play it out here. The biggest thing for Schildhouse is if you end up on the inside, don't try and overdrive corner exit. We saw what happened earlier on in this race where he drove himself into the fence off of turn 2 while racing for the lead. That's the one thing you cannot do in this situation. If you get yourself loose out of turn 2 on a green-white checker restart, make that mistake once, your chance to win this race is all but over.
And it's going to be double file on the restart here. We are hearing from race control. Blake McCandless, David Schildhouse, your top 2. Landon Huffman will start in 3rd on 2 tires. Blake Barney, Joshua Wolf, Nick Holland, the top 6. Remember, Holland on very old tires right now that have been on the car for more than 30-plus laps. Wayne Hutchinson, Andrew Player, Jake Ham, Greg Maconi round out the top 10. It's the first of 3 green-white checkered attempts. Green flag waits up on the stand, backing away, 2 laps to go.
Blake McCandless has gotten great restarts all night long, and that was no exception. Schildhouse, though, is going to be able to get that preferred groove in the middle, and I think find the room he needs to make a good charge. So he should have 1 shot, maybe 2 shots at this if we stay green.
We'll have to see how he tries to send it in, as coming to the white flag. If they take the white flag, race is official. Big slide from McCandless up the track. Shieldhouse within a car length. Down the straightaway. No cautions. Race is official. Final lap.
2 more shots for David Shieldhouse to try and wrest the win away from Blake McCandless, who creeps up the racetrack. I almost wonder if he anticipated the big dive from Shieldhouse in 1 and 2. He survives 1 set of corners. What happens in 3 and 4, Justin Prince?
Here comes the send from David Shieldhouse for the race win. Tries to get to the quarter panel. Can't get there. Here comes Barney for second. Blake McCandless clears off the final corner. He wins the Setup Shop Charity Challenge. And it's a 1-2-3 for Maconi Setup Shop as they crash behind him.
Blake McCandless strong all night, and Shieldhouse tried to make the move happen finally, but all love between the 20 and the 66. We know that those two have been racing each other for a long while and get along very well. And a solid run for Blake Barney as well. We haven't seen much of him throughout the year in the sim, but we know that anytime you stick a modified driver at New Hampshire, the home field advantage is certainly in play. But solid work from the 66 machine to get the job done at the end of the day and pick up the victory in the Setup Shop Charity Challenge at New Hampshire.
And what a race for Blake McCandless, the second half especially. He seemed to learn a ton from some of the mistakes he made early on in this one, James, to put himself in this position.
See all the drivers of Maconi Setup Shop in formation at the front of this field, and a big night for them. They pick up, I think, 4 of the top 5 spots in tonight's race?
Yes, indeed, they did. They get to take some photos as all the drivers who took part tonight look to celebrate what was a big event here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, all in the name of charity, whether for Speedway Children's Charities and Make-A-Wish. The drivers now getting the open door to celebrate and burn things down, and some of them respond by burning it down into each other. I guess that's a good cue to look at your unofficial race results, shall we? As Blake McCandless wins by just under 0.2 of a second over David Shieldhouse. Blake Barney rounds out the top 3, all for Maconi Setup Shop, while Joshua Wolf, the highest running Majors Garage driver, finished in 4th. Wayne Hutchinson finished in 5th, started in 7th, while Andrew Player went from 9th up to 6th at one point during this race. Landon Huffman on 2 tires fell back to 7th. Nick Holland on old tires finished in 8th, while the Maconis rounded out the top 10, Jeffrey and Greg.
Jason Perkins finished in the 11th spot. 12th went to Brogan Pickett Norris. Michael Larch was 13th in tonight's race, and 14th was the 76th of Adam Morgan. Brandon Regal finished in the 15th spot. 16th went to Jake Ham. Matthew Hughes was 17th in the final running order this evening, and rounding out the field, the 1 car 1 lap down was the 70 of Brian Scrivener.
The big winner tonight on the racetrack is Blake McCandless. He comes away with the race victory, started in 3rd, and really had an improvement shown in the second half of this one. Blake, how does it feel to be the winner of the Setup Shop Charity Challenge?
It feels really good, Justin. This was a really fun race to be a part of. It was really slick out on the track, so everybody's just kind of struggling for rear grip. And, it was a real kind of chess match between the top 3 of us there, David, Blake, and I. We all seemed to be really close in terms of what we could do with speed over the long run. So it was just kind of a game of trying to make them run hard or kind of make them run off their rear tires. So we were just lucky to be able to come out on top of that, and it's just a lot of fun to be able to run out here. I love New Hampshire. It's a great track, and these guys did a really nice job for 75 laps, put on a show.
Have to ask this, you had went from Majors Garage to Maconi Setup Shop tonight. Any reason for that?
Me and registration forms and not reading them, that's pretty much all it came down to. So it's not too much.
So here's the bright side then. With your group, overall in the points, it appears for now, we're waiting for official confirmation that Maconi Setup Shop's in a great position to have 75% of the total donations raised for this event to go to the New Hampshire Motor Speedway chapter of Speedway Children's Charities. You winning this race is a big part of that. How does that make you feel to be able to race for a good cause and win for a good cause?
Well, I think for both of these groups, it's exciting to come out here and be able to compete and have some fun for something like that. It looks like, I believe you're right, that Maconi Setup Shop would have come out on top. But if that's the case, it's good that we're able to represent like that, go out and run well. And, obviously this is all, for good causes both ways. So I wouldn't say that one's necessarily more of a winner than the other. But nevertheless, really cool to be a part of and help the Maconi Setup Shop guys.
Anyone you want to thank for your victory tonight in this race for a great cause?
Yeah, first off, I want to give a shout out to David Shieldhouse. We were kind of working together on the setup. Corey Carpenter was a big help as well. So getting us kind of tuned up for this race. So shout out to those guys. David and I had a lot of kind of communication mid-race about how the car was feeling and some changes we wanted to make to the car in practice. So shout out to those guys. Shout out to droppinfbomb.com. Obviously, if you want the best keto products on the globe, you can go there at droppinfbomb.com and get what you need if you're looking to kind of supplement your keto diet with some of the best tasting snacks and supplements. Of course, all you guys, I know I don't very often get dragged up here to do an interview as a driver, but obviously cool to kind of be on the other side of the mirror, so to speak, when doing this stuff. And hopefully this is a sign of things to come. Open Setup's a lot of fun, and it's something that I want to start committing a lot of time to, so that hopefully it's a lot of other races that we're running up front and competing.
Congratulations on the race victory tonight.
All right, thanks guys.
Like McCandless representing Maconi Setup Shop tonight, he was able to come away with a victory by just about 2/10 over David Shieldhouse. David Shieldhouse gets to catch up with James Pike.
An old friend returns to the booth at Podium Esports. And David, first question foremost, because it set the tone for so much of your evening. Over in turn 2, were you distracted by a gigantic box of Alden's ice cream down on the infield there? Or what happened coming out of the corner that caused you to smack the fence?
Oh, hi. Hello. Strange to be on this side of it. But yeah, the little thing over there in turn 2, there was this little... as I like to call it, a little puddle of suck. And, I was just doing some community service. I wanted to clean it up so nobody else ran it over. But, we recovered. It was okay.
So a charitable act and a charity race, which is just as well. But how did that incident change the way you race the back half of this? Because it seems like you were trying to use as much patience as you could in the opening 30 laps of this, and then I imagine once that happened, you realized that you had to go for it, right?
Yeah, absolutely correct. When I was running second there, just sort of making laps and, waiting for one little slip up. And he finally made a slip up, but I knew going on the inside was probably going to be a tough call, and I was pedaling it down there. It's just, the track was really hot and slick, and throttle management was really the key to this race. And even with a little bit of throttle application, the rear tires weren't having it. But losing that track position, and I was fortunate to only fall back to 7th because the field was so spread out. But being able to hold on to 7th meant I didn't have to drive as crazy. But I had to drive like my hair was on fire to try and get back to Blake McCandless. Because I knew that he was really the one I was racing for the win here tonight. Not to discredit Blake Barney, he was very quick as well, led the first half of that race. But I knew once Blake was out front, he was going to be a tough customer to get it away from. But man, that was fun. I had a good time in the second half of the race, battling with Landon Huffman. We had a whale of a brawl. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, hot track, slick track, very fun, very challenging.
Tire conservation was a theme throughout this race, and a tactic that a lot of the front runners used, and the folks who finished up near the top of the board ended up doing to considerable effect. What is it about a hot, slick track and tires that makes it fun for drivers who are so well versed and experienced in sim racing?
Because it puts so much back in the driver's control. When we run a lot of these races, we don't have a lot of control over what's going on. But when you have a hot, slick track, it really comes down to how well you're able to control your right foot and use that steering wheel to catch up with it as well. And so I think you saw tonight, it was as good of an example of how spread out and how big a skill gap can be in one race for people who are more comfortable running in those conditions versus people who aren't. And setup has something to do with that, but everybody was struggling with drive off of these corners. Getting the throttle down, being able to get down these straightaways was really the key. And I think there's a few of us that had it right, and the majority of people were just trying to hold on for dear life. But more often than not, to answer your question, I think drivers like that because it puts more of what happens in a race back in our control versus things out of our control.
Finally, anything else that you might have been able to do differently on that last green-white checkered, or was that absolutely everything trying to get Blake for the win?
You know, it was everything that I could do starting on the outside. You know, I didn't get a good restart on the final one, and I needed to be side by side with him going into one because you could really defend from that middle lane if you're up top. I could sort of push him down a little bit or pinch him down a little bit and hopefully get the run off the corner, but I just didn't get I didn't fire off all that well, and so I tried for one more big lunge in 3 on the last lap, but that wasn't going to work, and I had to stuff the brakes to not tackle him. But happy to finish second to Blake, and in the end, it's not about who wins or who finishes second, James. It's about the kids tonight and the Speedway Children's Charity, and I think we put on a great show, and to do that for a good cause is very fulfilling and very rewarding.
I know there are plenty of people that you need to thank, so go ahead and hit the laundry list as per usual. You, like Blake, are on the other side of this now. Instead of asking the questions, you get to tell us who you need to thank for making tonight's run possible.
Thank you, James. First and foremost, a big shout out to Jeff Maconi and the Maconi Setup Shop, Majors Garage, for putting on this event to benefit a very worthy cause. I highly encourage everybody watching tonight to go check out the charity and donate if you have the means to do so. Simply watching this event is a huge form of support, and everybody appreciates that. But if you have the means to do more than that, it really goes miles to help a very worthy cause. So thank you for that. Thank you to Podium Esports for covering this event and bringing more exposure to it. A big shout out to everybody at Kligerman Sport, now announced today. So hello to everyone there. NFR, North Force Racing, Splash and Go Graphics, of course, for the beautiful paint scheme. Everybody over here at twitch.tv/Shieldhouse, they love the event. A lot of support over there, and everyone who watched on all the other streams there as well. Big shout out to Mike Check. And that's it, man. I'm really happy with this event. Feels good to finish second. Would have liked to win, but in the end, it's all for the charity. And that's why we're racing. So appreciate it. And James, what are you doing in February?
Well, you know, I'm a little bit busy in February, and I figure you may be too. And that weekend of February 7th is going to be pretty jam-packed, and I think all I can say is folks should tune in a little bit early before Podium Esports broadcast the Pro Series next Tuesday night for a little bit more information on the 3rd annual Podium 500. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But in the meantime, go get yourself one of those Alden's ice cream sandwiches for the kids, David, for the kids.
Oh, absolutely. That's as good a reason as I could imagine to have one of those. Thank you, James. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
David Shieldhouse. P2 tonight in the Setup Shop Charity Challenge. We turn our attention now to the man who came home P3, Blake Barney. Plenty of experience up here, and now with Justin Prince.
Yes, indeed. And Blake, first things first, talk us through your race, especially as you were up at the front all day, but seemed to not have the pace in the long run. No offense.
No offense. I mean, that's exactly what happened. Even when I was leading at the beginning of the race, I had a good move on the outside and got to get out front there and kind of control it. Thought I could, but they were just coming to me. I got a little bit of a lead early. Every single time that we'd get a run, I'd get maybe a second out on the short run, and then once 15 laps would go by, they'd start coming to me. So that's kind of just what happened, and then I got behind there halfway through the race and just could never really get back.
On top of things, what would you change with how you drove this car tonight then, on that note, knowing that the track was hot and it was very slippery? Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I was burning the right rear out too much. I probably would have been a little bit easier on the throttle, and plus it was open setup, so I didn't really make so many long run runs on the setup, so I definitely would have accounted for that. But every time I came in, it was just too much on the right rear. So definitely, I mean, I drive it a little bit different, but it was mostly I could have tweaked the setup a little bit more, but just how it is.
Overall, though, you were a part of what is a big night charity-wise, and 75% of the donation total does go to the Maconi Setup Shop representatives, those being, once again, the Speedway Children's Charities chapter at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. How overall does it feel to be part of that and part of that big race tonight between yourself, McCandless, and yourself, Schildhouse and McCandless, rather?
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome to, you know, be able to raise money and have fun while doing it, and just see, you know, I had fun out there, and I think everyone had fun, and to do it for a good cause is everything. You know, Jeff Maconi, I just can't say enough about him. He asked me last season to run for him, and it's been awesome ever since, and him doing events like this is just really shows why he's a great guy. And yeah, I mean, it's just awesome to do something fun and raise money for a good cause while doing it.
Absolutely. Anyone you want to thank for your run today on that note?
Yeah, my spotter, Kyle Sisko, I spotted for him last night in the Omega Cup Series. So just me and him, kind of like partners on this iRacing deal. So
congratulations on the run tonight.
Thank you.
Blake Barney, rounding out your top three tonight. Heck of a run for him. Also standing by with James Pike is going to be Jeff Maconi, or pardon me, yes indeed, Jeff Maconi, or Andrew Player, I should rather say, pardon me, who is definitely going to be pumped up on his run, top six.
Top six indeed for Andrew Player. And Andrew, you saw the drivers at the front just putting the masterclass on the tire saves, especially in the long green flag runs. What did you learn over the course of this race that helped you get to P6 tonight?
You know, I really learned pit stops. Taking two tires there at the end really kind of got me up into a position where I could go for that P6. Made a mistake, took 4 early on, and kind of set me back, and I really kind of had to battle back through a few positions that I had earned early in the race.
A big run here just outside the top 5, but for you and everybody at the Memorial and everybody with the NHSB Fallen Troopers, how big is this to have a huge run on a night that means so much?
You know, it's really great. You know, I ran this scheme for the California Clash a few months ago, and unfortunately got taken out early in the run. So it's really nice to be able to come home with a good, solid finish at our home track, representing the Fallen Troopers. You know, it's really nice to be able to showcase those fellows that have made that ultimate sacrifice for the people in New Hampshire. So really proud to be able to showcase for them.
Who do you need to thank for making tonight's run possible?
You know, really got to thank the committee for the Fallen Troopers Memorial for allowing me to run the scheme, to let me showcase it for them. Again, I got to thank my wife for putting up with me. I've been sim racing for 25 years now, so she's been a great sport about it, and I really appreciate all her support. And of course, again, I got to shout out to my #1 fan, my son, for staying up and watching me race.
Andrew, congratulations on your 6th place finish this evening from all of us at Podium Esports, and thanks for taking the time to chat with us this evening.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Andrew Player P6. We now turn it over to the man with the winning setup shop at the end of the night. It is the Maconi Setup Shop who takes the Setup Shop Charity Challenge, and Justin Prince is with Maconi Setup Shop's Jeff Maconi.
Yes, indeed, Jeff. Your organization is the one that comes out on top tonight. How does that make you feel?
I really think at the end of the night, the thing that makes me feel the best is how much we were able to raise, and all the attention brought in, and the money raised and donated. It's really incredible. It wasn't about winning or losing, and I'm really glad that, you know, we could help out the Speedway Children's Charities, but I'm also really happy that we could also send 25% of it over to Make-A-Wish as well. And it was just, man, I'm a professional announcer, and I'm at a loss for words, and I think that is the most glowing review I can possibly give, and the best I can put it into words here of how I'm feeling right now after that amazing event.
Of course, when discussing things early on, you mentioned a lot of the work put in. Of course, now that the checker flag is waved, what's kind of the reaction now that you've just taken it all in and just knowing that you did a lot of good tonight?
You know, it's a really amazing feeling. Everyone here should be proud of all the work they put in. I just sat back and set up the session and sort of organized from behind the scenes along with Mike over at Major's Garage, but everyone that showed up should be really proud of everything that was accomplished tonight. It's it's incredible, the fact that we can use something that we do as a hobby, that we do for fun. The fact that on a personal side I can do it and help people out and provide setups and, you know, make a little money off of it and cover my internet bill for the month is really nice, and I'm lucky enough that I get to do that. But the fact that we can all come together and do something we take as a hobby, that we do for fun, that we do for a little bit of competition, but we do it because we enjoy it and do good with that and help people out and bring money in that wouldn't have been there before if we hadn't taken the time to do this, and everyone involved hadn't shown up, is really amazing. The fact that we can take something we do for fun, iRacing, and do real world good with it is really probably the best feeling out of all of this for everyone.
Anything else you'd like to add, or anyone you want to thank for being a part of this event and all the work that was put in for this one tonight?
First and foremost, the guys over at Major's Garage, Mike and his team did a phenomenal job helping us out in setting this event up, and it really was a team effort. And I know there's the whole, stigma behind the scenes. People think, oh, all the setup shops hate each other and it's all nothing but competition and it's a cutthroat business. But no, when you have two people that are working together for a common goal, like Mike and I are, to help make the community better, with Majors and Maconi Setup Shop and other shops out there, the goal is to make the community a better place. And I know when we found this, we realized how like-minded we are. It was an amazing feeling. So huge thank you to them, and we will be doing more events with them in the future. That is absolutely 100% confirmed. We're already talking about plans for the next one, and it's going to be a lot of fun there. So there's definitely more to come, but thank you to all of them. Thank you to every single person that showed up and drove. Thank you to everyone that was watching, that donated, everyone that was watching and even showing support, that shared the stream. It really is an amazing community that we get to be a part of with iRacing. I think it's one of the best communities on the internet, and the fact that we can do as much real world good that we are able to do and help each other out as much as we possibly can is really something special that shouldn't be taken for granted. So everyone that participated, that watched, that donated, that raced, that even just shared the stream, thank you all so much for helping make this possible and make future events possible, because there's going to be a lot more in the future now.
Great to hear, and once again, congratulations on the team victory, and congratulations on what was a well-run and big-time event for all charities involved.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you to all you guys as well for all the work you guys did. And Ryan Bauer, man, he worked nonstop behind the scenes to get all the graphics together and everything else. So everyone drop in chat, say thank you to him, because he did so much work along with James and Justin to make this event possible. Without these guys here up in the booth working, we would not have had an event to show you. So keep in mind and say thank you to them as well.
Thank you very much for the time, Jeff.
Absolutely.
Jeff Maconi from Maconi Setup Shop joining us. He finished 9th, and his organization came out on top in the Setup Shop Charity Challenge. And what an event it was, James, to be a part of, with both Make-A-Wish and the New Hampshire Motor Speedway chapter of Speedway Children's Charities being represented tonight. Absolutely huge event this evening with some absolutely big-time battles.
Yeah, I think, yes, Blake McCandless wins the race. Yes, the Maconi Setup Shop wins the event. But the big winners at the end of the night, hands down, no question, Speedway Children's Charities and the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Those two are the ones getting all the support and getting all the proceeds from these drivers who entered tonight's race. And that's ultimately what the focus of charity events like these is supposed to be about. The racing is more of a sideshow to the cause. There are plenty of cases where sim racing could come together and put on impressive drives to get funds into the hands of organizations that really do make a difference. And this is just another great example of that, especially with the tie-ins to everything in New Hampshire and everything with their local Speedway Children's Charity chapter. That not only was this a charity event, but one that will have a direct impact on the community where we were, even if virtual.
Absolutely, and it makes me happy to hear that there are plans for more in the future, to see more coordination between these organizations that took part tonight. I can't wait to see what happens in the future. And speaking of the future, there are upcoming events across Podium Esports coming up, including on December 21st, the Grit Ultimate Driver Challenge heads to Lanier to the dirt track to see how drivers fare in that one. Once again, that's December 21st, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can catch that on Podium Esports on Twitch. You could also, that night, catch the doubleheader with Monday Night Racing presented by Tufco going to Knoxville for the trucks. That one's expected to be a good one as well. December 21st at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. You can catch that on Podium 2. Then on Tuesday, the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series comes to a close with the finale at Homestead. That takes place on December the 22nd, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, to see which drivers get the 21 spots for the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series in 2021. Once again, 9 p.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/esports. A heck of an event tonight and a big event tonight. We'd like to thank everyone for tuning in for tonight's action here on Podium Esports. For Cisco Scaramuza, for Gary Sexton, John Theodore at Podium Esports, for producer Ryan Power, and for my partner in the booth tonight, and James Pike, I'm Justin Prince. Thank you so much for watching Podium Esports' coverage of the Setup Shop Charity Challenge, presented once more by Maconi Setup Shop and Majors Garage, benefiting both Speedway Children's Charities and Make-A-Wish. We look forward to seeing you next time. Have a good rest of your night.